Greetings, I am the wrestling fan. I may not be the best wrestling fan, but I am the finest. Now, February is known as the month of love.
Barf!
And most people decide to cuddle up with their significant others to celebrate before they bounce on top of each other for a few seconds and then try to remember if they use protection. And that's the story of how I got here. Usually, my protection has always been telling women that I'm a wrestling fan, but my girlfriend knows that. So for Valentine's Day, I suggested that we watch a wrestling movie. She smiled big, told me absolutely fucking not, and then said to consummate myself. I took a few seconds to do that while she cried in the other room, questioning her life choices, and decided to pop in the movie I wanted to watch, The Wrestler. Made in the early 1970s and was the brainchild of... No, not The Wrestler from 2008 starring Micky Rourke, who should have won the Best Actor Academy Award, but didn't because he decided to work with the WWF of E. Oops! But he did get to punch Chris Jericho in the face at WrestleMania, so pretty much the same thing.
Only not.
No, I'm talking about The Wrestler, which came out in 1974. Yes, this actually exists, and was the brainchild of the American Wrestling Association's main star and owner, Vernon the Vern Gagne. Unlike the Mixters film, this, The Wrestler, treats pro wrestling as a legitimate sport, which certainly piqued my interest because I've always wanted to see a movie like that. Now, I first heard about The Wrestler in the WWE-made documentary, The Spectacular Legacy of the AWA. Quick side note, if you haven't watched it, it's very okay. It's pretty good. Now, in this documentary, a behind-the-scenes dude person said this.
It was a pretty darn good movie, really.
Well, let's see if he was telling the truth or if I found something that I can really make fun of. Or both! Let's watch The Wrestler from 1974. So the movie begins with Larry the Axe Hennig being interviewed.
Really?
Excuse me. Larry Pretty Boy Hennig is talking about his upcoming title match with Mike Bullard. Line. We then see the match between Pretty Boy... Okay, I can't. I'm sorry, but no. And Bullard, who is actually Vern Gagne. Why not just call them by their real names? I could see No Holds Barred borrowed this dumbass trick.
Hulk Hogan is ripped.
Because he rips his shirt. Because it's so fucking clever. And you are? Well, you're interrupting the match, Frank. So Frank Bass, a wrestling promoter, played by Ed Asner, explains all of Mike Bullard's past accomplishments, while I guess Larry Hennig took a powder and was replaced by Nick Bockwinkel. And they say WWE matches are hard to follow. I really like how they shot the matches, and they do come off as cinematic. Not like nowadays, where cinematic matches in pro wrestling are just... stupid. The famous Gagne... Sorry, I mean Bullard sleeping hold. God, that's gonna be annoying. Move, bitch! We then see the wrestling office. That's seriously what it's called. Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher drop by to sexually harass the receptionist because 70s! And Frank Bass gets a phone call to go see Bullard at his home. This scene also name drops so many famous wrestlers and promoters that if you're a wrestling historian, you'll probably cream your pants. Gah. I always keep a spare. So Bass arrives and talks to Bullard's wife, who is concerned about her husband. No, he's actually been watching wrestling matches and looking at competition. Pedro Morales, Dory Funk, and luckily that's it because it's too soon to change my pants again. Now we're gonna have all the wrestlers play football. I mean, yeah, obviously we're running out of ideas, but it was either that or something called the Tower of Doom. Bass has a conversation with a guy named Joe.
It's like a sauna in here.
Who wants to get in the wrestling business, but threatens him if he doesn't want to play ball. You came at the right time. They're gonna have a Super Bowl.
Plot device called Deus Ex Machina.
Please stop caressing his shoulder like that.
Stop that!
A top contender is found for Bullard named Billy Taylor, who is actually Billy Robinson. Why not just call him Rip? And it impresses Bass, which is pretty funny because he barely saw a minute of clips. It's like if I watched the first couple minutes of Ready to Rumble and did the review like this. Wow, this is pro wrestling Citizen Kane. Bass and friend go talk to Billy. So Nick Bockwinkel is still Nick Bockwinkel on this? Dude, you've seen a minute of clips and a few seconds of him doing some moves in person. This is like when Vince McMahon saw Tom McGee's match with Bret Hart and thought he would be the next Hulk Hogan.
Wrong.
We then see a match between Wahoo McDaniel and superstar Billy Graham. Now we see where Vince McMahon got his walk from. Jack Cutler wrestles the crippler Ray Stevens. And yes, he was the only professional wrestler to ever have that nickname, ever. God! You're disqualified for coming off the top rope. There will never be a more dastardly, evil move in all of professional wrestling. He's dead?
What a twist!
This character should have been played by Vince McMahon. What? Come on, it's you! That's not good shit!
You got spunk. I hate spunk!
Well, you keep telling everyone about him, but it's a mystery. So Joe wants Bass to have Taylor beat Vern Bullock no matter what. You can't fix a pro wrestling match, that's absurd! Bass gets back to his wrestling office, only to find out that Bullock knows about Billy Taylor, much to his dismay, and gets a call from Dusty Rhodes, baby. Damn it! This was when he was Dirty Dusty Rhodes and teamed up with Dick Murdoch as the infamous Texas Outlaws. You shut up, Doc Gallows. Of course they played that music.
That's racist!
They're actually wrestlers, but you are not an actor.
I know Kung Fu.
So we get a bar fight between the Texas Outlaws and the two men who brought nothing but devastation. I'm sorry. Honestly, this is just stupid fun, and yes, it has silly music and sound effects. It's what I would have done, but they beat me to it. Bass and Bullock meet up for tennis to have a discussion. Because 70s? They were playing for a ball of wax? Why not just play for a whole house? I got a 1-minute clip of him if you want to watch it. Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Taylor have a match while Bullock and Bass watch. Taylor defeats Bockwinkel and then meets Bullock backstage, who invites him over to train and to have dinner.
Fuck you!
I will never retire!
That's a hell of a kiss. Damn it! I'm running out of pants! One day my son Chad will wrestle and become Shorty G. So Bullock has Billy Taylor wrestle someone to show his students how pro wrestling is done. Now remember, he can't go longer than a minute. It's dinner time at Bullock's house, and all I can do is feel bad for his wife because think of how much food she had to make to feed these guys. Oh, honey, that was good so far. But I think me and the boys are ready for course number 7. We then see a dead woman floating in a pool, because 7, and we see Bass talking to other promoters. That's Vince McMahon Sr.! Holy shit! Hey, my son's gonna ruin all of you in the 1980s. Just a heads up. Billy Taylor faces Ray Stevens when there's a full moon out, and closer than I've ever seen. It should look like this. Taylor cripples the crippler and wins the match, and then we see Bass at dinner with his assistant. I'm talking about sex, Frank. Steak, Frank, remember? No, but eventually we'll have ESPN. Bass turns her down, but then suddenly remembers that he actually loves steak, and soon after, Taylor and Bullard talk to Bass in his office about a match. Finally, we get the showdown. Yeah, I guess we need to stretch this out longer. Wow, Vernon. You're a bitch. So Bass sets up the match between Bullard and Taylor that will take place before the Super Bowl.
Did we just become best friends?
Yup! It's now the night of the big main event, and Gangsta Joe takes the assistant hostage and beats up Bass to convince him to make Bullard lose.
Plot device called Deus.
So we finally get the Bullard-Taylor showdown, and I'll give this movie a lot of credit because I'm excited for it, and I'm not sure who's gonna win. Taylor dominates most of the match, which is surprising because it looks like it goes longer than a minute, until Bullard hits his dreaded dropkick that always puts his opponents away, and that's the end of the movie. What? What? Who won? What happened? Did I just get sopranoed?
Don't stop.
In all seriousness, I actually like this ending, and I think it's obvious Bullard won, but we don't find out, and we don't need to. The Wrestler in 2008 did a similar ending, and it worked there too. Overall, and I'm surprised as hell, this isn't a bad movie. I really liked it. It was very smart to have the main character as the promoter Frank Bass, because since all the wrestlers were played by actual wrestlers, they got a great actor in Ed Asner to carry the movie, and I think he pulled it off. It's an interesting story, and it's entertaining until the very end. Yeah, it's nothing great, and I think only wrestling fans like myself would want to watch it, especially nowadays, but if you are like me, I recommend it. It's on the YouTube, and it's also out on DVD, but just a fair warning, even though you probably noticed throughout this review, the video and the audio quality are quite poor. Well, after last month's review of the 2015 Royal Rumble debacle, it was nice to do something that ended up being nice. It was actually somewhat of a positive review. Yeah, I made fun of it, but I actually quite enjoyed it, and I'm glad I saw it. So it was nice to do that for a change. Who knows? Maybe next month there'll be something similar. Maybe I don't know, you know, keep this good mood going. So, all right, I'm the wrestling fan, and I'll still be... That sound effect sounded really familiar. And it makes me worried. Oh, fuck! Quiet on the set.